My name is Agnes, and I'm 67 years old. I never thought standing in aisle 5 of a grocery store could break my heart so completely. The words still echo in my ears. That old woman is just the maid. Don't talk to her. My daughter-in-law Veronica's voice sharp and dismissive. But what hurt even more was watching my son Bill and my 16-year-old grandson Tyler burst into laughter at my expense. They had no idea they were mocking the owner of the very store they stood in. Let me know where you're watching from and hit that subscribe button. The people who should love us most can sometimes wound us the deepest. I was born to Polish immigrants who arrived in America with nothing but hope and calloused hands. My parents worked in factories, saving every penny, dreaming their children would have better lives than theirs. By 14, I was already working after school at the corner grocery owned by our neighbors, the Hendersons. Mr. Henderson taught me how to stock shelves, manage inventory, and most importantly, treat customers like family. Agnes, a grocery store isn't just about selling food, he would say. It's about feeding a community. Those words planted a seed that would grow throughout my life. At 19, I met Walter Sullivan at that same grocery store. He came in every Thursday for his grandmother, clutching a carefully written list in her shaky handwriting. I noticed how patient he was, asking questions about which brand of flour she preferred, whether the apples were sweet enough for her pie. A man who cared about the details of an elderly woman's shopping list was a man worth knowing. Walter worked as a mechanic, fixing cars with the same careful attention he gave his grandmother's grocery list. We married 6 months after meeting, pooling our modest savings to rent a tiny apartment above a hardware store. We shared a dream of owning our own business someday. "We'll start small," Walter would say as we lay in bed planning our future. A little neighborhood place where people feel welcome. 4 years into our marriage, our son William arrived. We called him Bill from day one. He was a beautiful baby with Walter's strong chin and my hazel eyes. I cut back my hours at the Henderson store, juggling motherhood with our savings plan. When Bill was 7, our opportunity came. A small grocery on Maple Street went up for sale when the owner decided to retire. The building was run down, the inventory sparse, but the location was perfect. A residential neighborhood with no other grocery within walking distance. We emptied our savings account and took out a loan that terrified us with its size. Sullivan's Market opened on a rainy Tuesday with little fanfare. I still remember our first customer, Mrs. Abernathy, buying milk and bread. She became a regular for the next 20 years. Bill grew up in that store doing homework at the counter, learning to count back change stocking shelves after school. Walter handled maintenance and deliveries while I managed operations and customers. We were a true family business. "Mom, why do you work so hard?" Bill asked me once when he was about 12. I was doing inventory late at night after a full day of work. "Because someday this will all be yours," I told him. "Your father and I want to leave you something valuable." As Bill entered high school, I noticed he became less interested in the store. He was bright, popular, with ambitions beyond our little neighborhood. Walter and I discussed it extensively. "Maybe we're holding him back," Walter worried. "My father expected me to be a mechanic like him. I never had other options." We decided then that Bill should be the first in either of our families to attend college. We'd work even harder to make it happen. Bill was accepted to State University to study business. We couldn't have been prouder. The store had done well enough that we could afford his tuition without loans, though it meant postponing renovations and working even longer hours. "You two have sacrificed enough for me," Bill said the day we dropped him off at his dormitory. "I'll make it worth it." In his junior year of college, Walter complained of indigestion after a long delivery day. I insisted he see a doctor, but he waved off my concerns. That night he died of a massive heart attack in his sleep. He was only 47. I was devastated but had no time to properly grieve. The store needed running bills, needed paying, and Bill needed to finish his education. I threw myself into work, expanding store hours and adding new product lines to increase revenue. Bill returned for the funeral, but went back to school after just 3 days. "Dad would want me to finish strong," he said. I agreed, though the store felt impossibly empty without Walter's whistling as he stocked shelves or fixed the temperamental refrigeration units. By the time Bill graduated with his business degree, I had already opened a second location in the neighboring town. Running 2 stores as a widow wasn't easy, but I'd found talented managers who shared my philosophy about customer service and community. Bill's graduation coincided with him meeting Veronica Winters, the daughter of a banking executive. She was beautiful, sophisticated, and clearly from money. When Bill brought her to the original store to meet me, I noticed how she touched nothing, her eyes sweeping over our modest operation with barely concealed disdain. "So this is where Bill learned the grocery business," she said, making it sound like we sold something distasteful. I tried warming to Veronica over the following months. I invited her for meals, asked about her interests, even sought her advice on modernizing our store signage. But there was always an invisible wall between us. When Bill announced their engagement 6 months later, I feigned the enthusiasm expected of me. I used a significant portion of my savings to give them a beautiful wedding, including the country club reception Veronica hinted was appropriate. "Mom, you didn't need to do all this," Bill said at the reception, gesturing at the elaborate decorations and gourmet menu. "I wanted your day to be special," I replied, though what I really wanted was to feel connected to my only child on his wedding day. After a honeymoon in Europe, Bill took a job at a marketing firm rather than joining the family business, as I'd always assumed he would. I told myself it was good for him to forge his own path, but a small part of me felt rejected. "The grocery business isn't exactly glamorous," Bill explained when I finally asked why he hadn't considered working with me. "And Veronica thinks I should aim higher." That statement revealed more than he probably intended about who was guiding his decisions. The first major crack in our relationship appeared at Thanksgiving dinner the year after Bill and Veronica married. I'd hosted holiday meals my entire married life, continuing the tradition after Walter passed. That year, I prepared all of Bill's favorites: my cornbread stuffing sweet potato casserole with the extra brown sugar topping he loved as a child, and Walter's secret recipe pecan pie. When they arrived, Veronica immediately wrinkled her nose. "Oh, you're cooking the traditional way. How quaint. We've been doing farm-to-table Thanksgivings with my family, so much lighter and more sophisticated." Throughout dinner, she picked at her food, making comments about calories and cholesterol. Bill, who had always devoured second and third helpings of my cooking, took tiny portions and left half uneaten. "Are you feeling okay?" I asked him privately in the kitchen. "Veronica and I are trying to eat healthier," he replied. "Maybe next year we should do Thanksgiving at our place. Veronica's family chef could prepare something." Family chef. The words felt like a slap. I'd been cooking for my family since I was tall enough to reach the stove. When their son Tyler was born the following spring, I was ecstatic to become a grandmother. I bought every baby item I could think of, converted my spare bedroom into a nursery for visits, and rearranged my work schedule to be available whenever they needed help. But the calls for help never came. When I offered to watch Tyler so they could have a date night, Veronica always had an excuse. "We have a night nurse for that," or "My mother is actually coming to stay this weekend." When I did get to visit Veronica, hovered correcting my way of holding Tyler or preparing his bottle. "The parenting books recommend this method," she would say, taking him from my arms to demonstrate. I tried to adapt. I read the same parenting books, learned about baby-led weaning and sensory development toys. But Veronica continuously moved the goalposts, finding new reasons why my help wasn't quite right. As Tyler grew into a toddler, I hoped to establish a closer relationship. I'd imagined being the kind of grandmother who took her grandson for ice cream, taught him to fish, or shared family stories. Instead, my visits were limited to formal occasions at their house, where I felt more like an acquaintance than family. Their home was a showcase property in an exclusive neighborhood filled with expensive furniture that seemed designed for appearance rather than comfort. During visits, Veronica would make comments like, "Agnes, you might want to use the powder room to freshen up before dinner," implying I somehow looked disheveled. Or, "We've gone business casual for tonight," making me feel self-conscious about my simple clothes. Bill never contradicted her. In fact, over time he began mirroring her behavior. He would introduce me to their friends with qualifiers. "This is my mother, she runs a small grocery business." The emphasis on small stung every time. When Tyler was about 7, I overheard him asking Bill, "Why does Grandma always dress like that?" referring to my practical slacks and comfortable shoes. Instead of explaining that I dressed appropriately for someone who spent hours on her feet managing stores, Bill laughed and replied, Some people never quite figure out style, buddy. By Tyler's 10th birthday, the distance between us had grown into a chasm. I brought him a fishing rod as a gift, remembering how Walter had taught Bill to fish at that age. "We're not really outdoor people," Veronica said dismissively. "Tyler's more into tech and gaming." Tyler barely thanked me quickly, setting the rod aside to return to the expensive tablet he'd received from his other grandparents. That night, driving home alone, I cried for the first time in years. Not just for my lost relationship with my grandson, but for Bill, the compassionate boy who had somehow become this status-conscious man who seemed embarrassed by his own mother. Still, I continued reaching out, sending birthday cards, attending school performances, when invited, trying to maintain some connection. Simultaneously, I retreated further into what had always given me purpose, my work. What Bill and his family didn't know, what I had deliberately kept from them, was just how successful that work had become. While my personal life was increasingly hollow, my business was thriving beyond anything Walter and I could have imagined. From our 2 original locations, Sullivan's Markets had expanded to 27 stores across 3 states. We weren't just corner groceries anymore, but full-service supermarkets with pharmacies, bakeries, and prepared food sections. I had deliberately kept the extent of this growth from Bill. After seeing how Veronica's awareness of wealth changed people's behavior, I was wary of how knowledge of my success might impact our already strained relationship. Would Bill suddenly take interest in the business he'd dismissed for years? Would Veronica's treatment of me change if she knew I was worth millions? Instead of flaunting my success, I channeled it into creating the kind of business Walter would have been proud of. We became known for fair wages, good benefits, and promoting from within. Many of our employees had been with us for decades. My personal office remained in the back of our original Maple Street location, deliberately modest and functional. I drove the same practical sedan for years, lived in the same house Walter and I had bought when Bill was 10, and continued to dress for comfort rather than status. "Agnes, I don't understand why you live like you're still struggling," said Margaret, my assistant of 20 years and closest confidant. "You've earned some luxury." "I have everything I need," I would reply, "and I sleep better knowing our employees have health care and retirement plans." Margaret knew the truth few others did, that I had quietly amassed substantial personal wealth separate from the business. Smart investments, commercial real estate holdings, and living well below my means had created a fortune that would have stunned those who saw me as just Bill's mother who runs a small grocery business. As Tyler approached his teenage years, I began thinking seriously about legacy. Despite the distance between us, Bill remained my only child, and Tyler my only grandchild. I worked with Howard, my attorney, to create a comprehensive estate plan. The business should eventually go to Bill, I told Howard, but I want safeguards. Our employees deserve security. We structured it so Bill would inherit controlling interest in Sullivan's Markets, but with provisions protecting long-term employees and maintaining our business philosophy. For Tyler, I established a trust fund that would provide generously for his education and give him a significant nest egg at 25, provided he completed college and performed a year of community service. "Agnes, have you discussed any of this with Bill?" Howard asked during one of our planning sessions. "No," I admitted. "I'm afraid Veronica would suddenly develop an interest in grocery stores if she knew what they're worth now." Howard nodded, understanding. He'd seen many families transformed, rarely for the better, by the prospect of inheritance. Our flagship store, the one on Maple Street where it all began, remained my favorite. I visited at least weekly, walking the aisles, chatting with longtime customers, and working alongside employees when needed. The staff all knew I was the owner, of course, but I'd ask them not to make a fuss about it. I preferred being just Agnes, the woman who could help you find the right cut of meat or suggest a wine pairing for your anniversary dinner. I'd modernized the store while keeping its neighborhood character. We had the latest inventory systems and energy-efficient refrigeration, but also a coffee corner where seniors gathered weekday mornings and a community bulletin board by the entrance. Walter would have loved what it had become. It was in this store, this place, that represented my life's work and held my most precious memories, that I would experience the most painful moment of my life. The day began like any other Tuesday. I arrived at the flagship store early, reviewing overnight delivery reports in my small office before walking the floor to check displays and chat with morning staff. I wore what I always did: comfortable navy slacks, a simple button-down shirt, and supportive shoes that wouldn't punish my back after hours of standing. Around 10, Margaret knocked on my office door with an unusual expression on her face. "Agnes, you'll never guess who just walked in. Bill and his family." My heart jumped. "Bill's here? He never comes to the store." "They're all three here, Bill, Veronica, and Tyler. Something about picking up specialty items for a dinner party tonight." I hadn't seen them in nearly 2 months, despite my calls and messages. My initial instinct was to rush out and greet them, but something held me back. "Don't tell them I'm here," I said suddenly. "I want to see how they act when they don't know I'm watching." Margaret raised an eyebrow but nodded. "I'll be at the customer service desk if you need me." I waited a few minutes, then casually walked onto the sales floor, grabbing a clipboard to look like I was doing inventory. I spotted them in the specialty cheese section. Veronica in an expensive-looking cream pantsuit, Bill in business casual attire, and Tyler, now 16, already nearly as tall as his father, engrossed in his phone. Veronica was loudly questioning one of our newest employees about the origin of a particular brie, her tone condescending as if speaking to someone particularly dim. "I need French brie, not Danish. Surely you understand the difference is significant for the dinner party we're hosting." The young employee, Jessica, maintained her professionalism despite Veronica's rudeness. "Yes, ma'am. Our French selection is right here. This one from Normandy is particularly good." I moved closer, pretending to count jars of specialty olives while keeping them in my peripheral vision. Bill stood silently by, neither participating in his wife's cheese interrogation nor discouraging her tone. Tyler continued staring at his phone, occasionally sighing dramatically to signal his boredom. They moved from department to department, Veronica finding fault with nearly everything. The produce wasn't organic enough, the bread selection was too limited, the fish didn't look fresh enough. Bill trailed behind with their cart, occasionally adding his own complaints. "The layout in here is so inefficient," he remarked. "You'd think they'd modernize after all these years." My chest tightened at his words. I had personally overseen the last renovation, carefully balancing modern convenience with the familiar layout our longtime customers preferred. They eventually made their way to the checkout area. I continued my charade of inventory taking, ending up near Register 3, where they got in line. The checkout clerk, David, had been with us for over 15 years. He was efficient, friendly, and knew many customers by name. "Good morning," David greeted them warmly. "Did you find everything you were looking for today?" "Barely," Veronica replied with a dramatic sigh. "Your cheese selection is woefully provincial." David maintained his professional smile as he began scanning their items. When he came to the wine bottles, he asked for ID, as our policy required for all alcohol purchases, regardless of the customer's apparent age. "That's ridiculous," Veronica snapped. "Do we look underage to you?" "It's store policy, ma'am. I need to check ID for all alcohol purchases." While Bill fished out his driver's license, Veronica's gaze drifted to where I stood nearby. Our eyes met briefly before she turned back to David. "That old woman," she said loudly, gesturing toward me. "Is she supposed to be working or just wandering around? She's been following us through the store." I froze, clipboard clutched to my chest. David looked confused, glancing between Veronica and me. "I'm sorry, ma'am." Veronica leaned forward, lowering her voice, but still perfectly audible. "That old woman is just the maid. Don't talk to her. She should be cleaning, not hovering around customers." The shock of her words paralyzed me. Maid. She thought I was a cleaning lady. In the store I built from nothing. Before David could respond, Bill glanced over and chuckled. "Oh yeah, she does look like she's lost. Probably new." Then Tyler looked up from his phone, following his parents' gaze to me. He burst into laughter. "She's wearing the same outfit my cafeteria lunch lady wears." Their combined laughter echoed through the checkout area. David stood frozen, scanner in hand, clearly recognizing me and horrified by what was happening. "Mrs. Sullivan," he began, but I gave a small, sharp shake of my head, silencing him. I couldn't speak. My throat had closed with the effort of holding back tears. 67 years old, and I was being mocked by my own family in the store I had built through decades of sacrifice and hard work. Other employees nearby had heard the exchange. Their faces reflected a mixture of shock, anger, and pity. Margaret appeared at the end of the aisle, her expression asking if I wanted her to intervene. I shook my head again and turned away, walking with as much dignity as I could muster back to my office. Once inside, I closed the door and finally allowed the tears to come. 5 minutes later, a sharp pain shot through my left arm and chest. The room seemed to tilt sideways. The last thing I remember before losing consciousness was thinking, Walter, I tried to raise him better than this. When I came to, I was on the floor with Margaret kneeling beside me and an ambulance crew entering the office. Mild heart attack, the doctor would later confirm at the hospital, likely triggered by extreme emotional distress. As I lay in the hospital bed that night, the heart monitor beeping steadily beside me, I made a decision that would change all our lives. 3 days in the hospital gives you plenty of time to think. The doctors called my heart attack mild, but there was nothing mild about the realization that had come with it. My son, the child I had sacrificed everything for, not only failed to respect me, but found me worthy of ridicule. He had stood by while his wife called me a maid, while his son laughed at my appearance. And they had done this in my store, surrounded by people who knew exactly who I was and what I had accomplished. Margaret visited daily, bringing work that could distract me and updates on the business. She carefully avoided mentioning Bill or his family until my 3rd day there. "They don't know you're in the hospital, do they?" she finally asked. I shook my head. "I haven't told them." "Agnes," she said gently, taking my hand, "they should know." "Why?" I asked, surprising myself with the coldness in my voice. "So they can pretend to care, so Veronica can comment on the thread count of the hospital sheets, or Bill can look embarrassed by the unfashionable hospital gown his mother is wearing." Margaret didn't argue. She'd witnessed enough of their behavior over the years to understand. "What are you going to do?" she asked instead. "Everything is going to change," I replied. "As soon as I'm discharged, I need you to arrange an emergency meeting with Howard." The day after returning home, Howard arrived at my house with his briefcase and concerned expression. "Margaret said it was urgent. Are you sure you shouldn't be resting?" "I've rested enough," I said, gesturing him to the dining room table where I had spread out my estate documents. "I need to make changes, significant ones." Over the next 3 hours, I outlined my new plans. Howard took notes, occasionally asking clarifying questions or suggesting legal alternatives to achieve my goals. "You want to completely remove Bill as heir to the business," he confirmed. "Yes. Instead, I want to convert the company to an employee-owned structure. The managers who have been with me for over 15 years will receive larger shares, but everyone with at least 5 years of service gets an ownership stake." Howard nodded, making more notes. "And the personal assets, the investments, real estate, cash. 20% to establish the Walter Sullivan Memorial Foundation, focused on helping families start small businesses. 10% divided among key employees who have been like family to me. The rest to fund educational programs for children of grocery workers and food service employees. And Bill and Tyler, you're leaving them nothing." Howard's tone wasn't judgmental, just making sure I understood the magnitude of what I was doing. "Not nothing," I clarified. "Bill gets the house he grew up in and a one-time cash gift that represents what the business was worth when he declined to join it after college. Tyler's college fund remains intact, but the larger trust is dissolved. He'll need to make his own way, just like his father should have." Howard finished his notes and looked up at me. "Agnes, I've known you for 30 years. I understand why you're doing this, and legally it's completely within your rights. But cutting off family is a big step. Are you absolutely certain?" "They cut me off long ago, Howard. They just did it slowly enough that I didn't notice until now." He nodded, gathering the papers. "I'll have the revisions drafted by Friday. We'll need to meet again to sign everything." After Howard left, my phone rang. It was Bill. My finger hesitated over the answer button. We hadn't spoken since the incident at the store, and he had no idea I knew what had happened. "Hello, Bill," I answered, keeping my voice neutral. "Mom, good news, Tyler's having his 16th birthday party next Saturday. We're doing it at our place. Nothing fancy, just family and a few of his close friends. Nothing fancy likely meant catering, decorations, and entertainment that cost more than some families made in a month. We'd love you to come, he continued. Around 4 o'clock, you can finally see the pool house renovation we finished last month. My first instinct was to decline to avoid subjecting myself to more subtle humiliations. But then I realized this would be the perfect opportunity to inform them of my decision all at once. I'll be there, I said. Is there anything special Tyler might like as a gift? Bill chuckled. You know teenagers, gift cards are always safe, though he is hoping for a car from us. Of course he was. At 16, Tyler expected a car as a birthright, just as he expected everything else life had handed him without effort. After hanging up, I called Howard back. How quickly can you have those documents ready for signature if I put a rush on it Friday afternoon? Perfect, I replied. I have a birthday party to attend on Saturday. The driveway of Bill and Veronica's home was lined with luxury vehicles when I arrived Saturday afternoon. Their 5-bedroom house in an exclusive gated community featured manicured landscaping and a 3-car garage that currently held Bill's Mercedes sedan, Veronica's BMW SUV, and a space conspicuously empty, presumably awaiting Tyler's birthday surprise. I parked my modest Toyota at the end of the drive, straightened my simple blue dress, and picked up the small gift bag containing my present for Tyler, a sealed envelope inside a birthday card. Taking a deep breath, I walked to the front door and rang the bell. A catering staff member in a crisp white shirt opened the door. Welcome to the Sullivans' residence. The celebration is on the back terrace. I made my way through the house, noting the new artwork and furniture since my last visit. Everything was impeccably arranged, looking more like a design showroom than a family home. No scuffs on the walls, no comfortable clutter, no sign that actual humans lived their messy lives here. The back terrace had been transformed with strings of lights, floral arrangements, and a large banner reading, Happy 16th Tyler. A 3-tiered cake stood on a buffet table alongside an impressive spread of gourmet finger foods. About 30 people milled about, teenagers in one corner looking bored, despite the festivities, adults in another sipping champagne and engaging in the kind of superficial conversation that dominated Veronica's social gatherings. Bill spotted me first, detaching himself from a group to approach with an air kiss near my cheek. Mom, you made it. Come meet the Whitmores. Jack's on the hospital board with Veronica's father. He led me to a cluster of well-dressed couples, introducing me with his usual qualifier. My mother, Agnes. She runs a small grocery business. I smiled politely as they murmured hellos, clearly dismissing me as unimportant to their social network. One woman, dripping in jewelry, asked, "A small grocery? How quaint is it one of those corner ethnic markets?" Before I could answer, Bill jumped in. "Just a neighborhood place, nothing fancy. Mom's old school about business." I bit back the correction that Mom's old school business now employed over 800 people and grossed $47 million last year. Veronica appeared looking elegant in a designer sundress that probably cost more than what I paid my department managers monthly. "Agnes, you found us. The caterer wasn't sure if someone had arrived at the service entrance." The implication was clear. I looked like I belonged with the staff, not the guests. "Tyler's opening gifts inside," she continued. "We should head in if you want to see." The gift opening was underway in their cavernous living room. Tyler sat surrounded by expensive presents, designer clothes, the latest electronic sports equipment. His friends watched with the jaded expressions of wealthy teenagers for whom such excess was normal. When Bill and Veronica led me in, Tyler glanced up without enthusiasm. "Hi, Grandma." "Happy birthday, Tyler," I said, offering my small gift bag. He took it with visible disappointment at its size, setting aside the latest gaming console he'd just unwrapped. Opening my card, he found the sealed envelope inside and looked at me questioningly. "Go ahead, open it," I encouraged. He tore the envelope and unfolded the single sheet inside. His expression shifted from boredom to confusion. "What is it, honey?" Veronica asked, peering over his shoulder. "It's a letter about my trust fund." Tyler looked up at me. "I don't understand." Bill immediately stepped forward, taking the paper. As he read, the color drained from his face. "Mom, what is this?" It's notification that Tyler's trust fund has been dissolved except for the college portion, I explained calmly. Howard prepared it this week. Dissolved? Veronica's voice rose sharply. What are you talking about? The room had gone silent, other guests sensing the sudden tension. Perhaps we should discuss this privately, Bill suggested, his lawyer's smile firmly in place for the onlookers. No need, I replied. It's quite simple. I've restructured my estate plan. The business will not be going to you, Bill. It's being converted to employee ownership. Most of my personal assets are going to charitable foundations. The silence in the room deepened. Tyler looked between his parents and me, confusion evident. This is ridiculous, Veronica finally said. You can't just change everything without discussing it with us. Actually, I can. And I did. I maintained my calm tone. Would you like to know why? Bill was already trying to do damage control, gesturing for the other guests to give us space. Mom, you're clearly upset about something. Let's talk about this later. I'm upset about Tuesday at the Maple Street store, I said clearly. When your wife called me the maid and instructed the checkout clerk not to speak to me. When you and Tyler laughed at my expense. Bill froze. Veronica's eyes widened. That was you. Tyler blurted, his teenage bluntness breaking through the tension. Yes, Tyler, that was me, in my store, the one I built from nothing, the one that employs hundreds of people and serves thousands of customers, the one your father was too embarrassed to join because, according to him, selling groceries isn't glamorous enough. Bill found his voice. Mom, Veronica didn't know it was you. None of us did. You were dressed like, well, you looked like... Like what, Bill? Like a hardworking woman, like someone who values comfort over appearance, or just like someone you could dismiss as unimportant. Veronica attempted to recover. Agnes, this is all a misunderstanding. If we had known it was you, of course, we never would have said those things. That's precisely the problem, Veronica. You shouldn't speak to anyone that way, whether they're a maid, a clerk, or the store owner. The fact that you only regret it because I turned out to be someone with money and power says everything about your character. By now, the party guests were openly staring. Veronica's carefully cultivated image of sophistication was crumbling before their eyes. You can't do this, Bill insisted, lowering his voice to a harsh whisper. The business should stay in the family. Dad would have wanted that. Your father would be ashamed of the man you've become, I replied, my voice finally breaking. He taught you to value people for their character, not their wallet or wardrobe. He would never have stood silently while someone insulted me or anyone else. This is emotional blackmail, Veronica hissed. You're punishing us because of one misunderstanding. No, Veronica. I'm finally seeing clearly after years of subtle cruelty and dismissal. You've made it abundantly clear that you value status and appearances over kindness and respect. I'm simply adjusting my legacy to align with my actual values, not the illusion of family that we've been pretending exists. I turned to Tyler, who stood wide-eyed and uncertain. Tyler, you're young enough to change course. The money for college is still there, but anything beyond that you'll need to earn. I hope someday you understand why I made this decision. As I headed for the door, Bill chased after me, panic replacing his anger. Mom, please, we can work this out. Veronica didn't mean anything by it. You know how she gets caught up in appearances. Yes, I do know. And you've chosen to prioritize her values over the ones your father and I taught you. That's your right. But it's my right to decide where the fruits of my life's work should go. But it's millions of dollars, he protested inadvertently, revealing that he had investigated the company's worth despite his professed disinterest. Yes, it is. Earned through years of hard work, fair treatment of employees, and service to communities. It should go to people who share those values. Veronica appeared behind Bill, her composed facade cracking. This is revenge, pure and simple. No, Veronica. This is justice and self-respect. I walked out the front door past the luxury cars and manicured shrubs to my reliable Toyota. As I drove away, I glanced in the rearview mirror to see Bill and Veronica standing in their doorway, the perfect image of success now clouded by the realization of what they had lost. For the first time in years, I felt not just heartache, but also peace. I had finally stood up for myself, for Walter's memory, and for the values we had tried to instill in our son. 1 year later, I sit in the community room of Sullivan's Market on Maple Street, surrounded by employees for our monthly town hall meeting. The transition to employee ownership has been remarkably smooth, with productivity and morale higher than ever. People work differently when they have a stake in the outcome. After my confrontation with Bill and his family, I reduced my operational role in the company, focusing instead on mentoring the next generation of leadership and guiding our charitable foundation. The Walter Sullivan Memorial Foundation has already helped finance 15 small business startups, primarily for immigrant families and single parents. Bill and I haven't spoken since Tyler's birthday party. He attempted to contest my estate changes, but Howard had ensured everything was legally ironclad. When the legal challenge failed, Bill sent a letter accusing me of destroying our family out of spite. I didn't respond. Some relationships can't be repaired with words alone. Veronica filed for divorce 6 months after the trust fund revelation, apparently deciding that Bill without an inheritance wasn't the same Bill she had married. According to mutual acquaintances, she's already engaged to a real estate developer, 20 years her senior. The most surprising development came from Tyler. 3 months after his birthday debacle, he showed up at the Maple Street store, awkwardly asking to speak with me. "I've been thinking about what happened," he said, his teenage bravado stripped away. "About how we treated you. It wasn't right." His honesty took me by surprise. "No, it wasn't. Dad doesn't like talking about it. He says you overreacted. But I keep thinking about what you said, about how we shouldn't treat anyone that way, no matter who they are." We talked for nearly 2 hours that day. Tyler shared his confusion about his parents' values, his awareness that his privileged upbringing had shaped his perspective, his uncertainty about his future. It was the most authentic conversation I'd ever had with my grandson. "Could I maybe learn about the business?" he asked hesitantly. "Not because of the money or anything. Just, it's pretty cool that you built all this. No one ever told me the whole story." I offered him a part-time job after school, starting in the stockroom, just as I had at his age. He's been working 16 hours a week since then, learning every aspect of the grocery business from the ground up. The employees were skeptical at first, but Tyler's willingness to do any task without complaint has gradually earned their respect. Last week he asked if he could bring a friend to see the distribution center. "He doesn't believe my grandmother runs this whole operation," Tyler explained. "He thinks I'm exaggerating." The pride in his voice was something I'd waited 16 years to hear. I've learned that family isn't always defined by blood or legal ties. My true family now includes Margaret, who has been my right hand for decades; David, the checkout clerk, who was horrified on my behalf; Jessica, the new employee, who maintained her professionalism despite Veronica's rudeness; and dozens of others who have shown more loyalty and respect than my own son. As for Bill, I've left the door open a crack. The home he grew up in remains his inheritance, a place filled with memories of a father who taught integrity and a mother who demonstrated perseverance. Whether he ever recognizes the value of that legacy is his choice. At 68, I now understand that respect cannot be bought or inherited. It must be earned through actions and character. Sometimes the hardest lessons come from those we love most, and sometimes the greatest gift we can give is the truth, even when it hurts. Have you ever had to stand up for yourself against family members who took you for granted? Share your story in the comments below. And if this resonated with you, please hit the like button, subscribe to hear more stories of resilience, and share with someone who might need encouragement to value themselves. Remember that you deserve respect regardless of your job title, bank account, or appearance. Thank you for listening to my journey, and may you always find the courage to honor your own worth.